All right, so welcome back to the WarRoom podcast. I'm Apostle Kevin.
I'm Tarsha.
And this is, as we said, the WarRoom podcast, where we are helping modern leaders become better. So this is definitely for modern church leaders, pastors, helping you with strategies and tools to be better, live better, lead better, and love better. Got them all in. Amen. All right, well, listen, we are continuing our conversations to, again, address a few things. We're filming this in May, so this is Mental Health Month.
Correct.
And so Tarsha had the idea let's have a conversation about it.
Yeah, it's important that we recognize Mental Health Month. Obviously, we all have to think about our health where it comes mentally.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of time we focus on our body, but we forget that our mental health is just as important to even help power our body so that it could be functioning in its full capacity.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we've got a guest we're going to bring up, Andrea Perriman, and we're going to bring her up and she'll introduce herself and let us know what she brings to this conversation as far as mental health.
Hi, thank you for having me. I am so happy to be here and to join you, especially in Mental Health Awareness Month, and to talk about the importance of being healthy in your mental processes as a leader is important. So thank you for having me. Like you said, Andrea Perriman, I'm a psychotherapist. I've been in the field of mental health for over 15 years. And I own and run a small private group practice here in Gilbert, Arizona, where we serve to treat the mental health of children, teens, and adults and families. And you name it, we've probably seen it and done our best to help it along the way at our Gilbert location. So thank you again for having me.
No problem. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, we appreciate you coming on. So we're focusing on leaders today, and I was just asking Andrea because I've been working on her name, Andrea, and if she could give us 5 ways to keep a healthy mind, or a leader to keep a healthy mind. And so if you could just start with one of the ways that you thought about, and we kind of just go through the points and just kind of talk about those ways.
So I appreciated the prompt of having that 5 kind of things to look for, 5 things to keep in mind when thinking about the mental health of a leader. And I went with the what, who, how, where, and why.
Good.
So to kind of keep me on track, that helps. Don't mind. This is a freebie, but lists I think are really helpful. So having that in mind, thinking about what in those 5 components of mental healthy leaders, knowing what your role is. So understanding, I think, first off, what is your role as a leader? If you know what your role is, then you also know what your role is not.
Yes. Good.
And so I think we've probably all heard that phrase of stay in your lane, right? If you understand that your role is to be the leader, right, then lead. But if you find yourself doing all the things, right, then you're probably not operating in the realm of leadership, right? You're just doing.
Right.
And so then your likelihood of leading, which kind of has that understanding of forward momentum, right? If you're not leading, then there's not forward momentum for all of the people who might be following you.
Yeah.
That's good.
So what is my role? That would be
I like that.
my first clue.
Yeah, I like that, because I think when I immediately heard that is that sometimes we have, especially if we're talking church leaders, right? We have people that are in roles that they're not necessarily gifted or graced for, right? And so you will drive yourself crazy trying to fit a mold or a model that you're not called, graced, or gifted to lead, right? So I think that's a good thing as far as what's your role? What do you do? and being clear on that.
Yeah, because a lot of times that's what put us into stress mode when we're not understanding that we're give directions instead of feeling like we have to put our hands in it or I have to take over.
Right.
So that brings on the stress, which can cause for you to have, certain things that happen in your body, because now you're like, okay, I'm gonna lead, but then also, well, let me do it. Or I got thoughts about this, which is okay to have thoughts,
right,
but bring that to the full team so that you're leading those conversations, that you're making decisions based off of people who may have the expertise that they need to move forward.
Right.
Yeah. That's good.
That's good.
What about the second one?
So my second is who. So who are you, right? And this might be a simplistic question, or at least a simplistic answer. The goal is for you to understand, who are you? You're a human, right? So acknowledging your humanity as a leader is critical. I think, unfortunately, in every realm, but especially in spiritual realms and within the church, leaders can unfortunately sometimes get maybe a God complex, right? Or not being able to accept their own humanity as a part of who they are as a leader. So acknowledging your humanity is a second important step. You're not exempt from humanity as a leader. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that as leaders, we can even get tripped up navigating the smoothest of pathways, right? So we might have many followers. We might have a sense of where we're, leading these followers to, and we might have a mission that's clear. We might have a purpose-driven life, right? But if there's not a lot of complexities along the journey, we're just smooth sailing. Well, then even the smallest of things can trip us up, and then we're not leading anymore. We've fallen, and the whole mission has kind of gone awry. So, acknowledging your humanity keeps you humble, and helps you pay attention to the pathway. And I'll get to how you can get people in place to help sure you're paying attention to the pathway so that you don't get tripped up by otherwise small things. But yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about when we're saying who you are? It's like, how do you keep discovering yourself? Because, we may become leaders at different times in our lives. And if we started as a leader young and now that we're older, how do we keep discovering who we are? Because we do change. Can you go a little in depth on that?
I think that's a great further consideration, Tarsha, because just like humans, right? So that first step on our second tier, right, of who, that first step is acknowledging you're a human, but then understanding even humans develop, right? So from infancy to adolescence, to young adulthood, to mature adulthood, right? And so recognizing, if you can first acknowledge, I'm a human, wow, like that's a big deal. I'm broken, right? I need help. If we can acknowledge those things and be humble, then we're also going to be able to recognize, oh, there's a trajectory of my development, right? And so where am I as a leader? Maybe I'm in the infancy stages. Leading as an infant brings its own complexities. But then also, once you're a mature leader, continuing to acknowledge that you are a human, right? So then maybe at that point in your leadership, if you're a mature leader, you're bringing up behind you infant leaders to then be in position to take over. So I think that's a kind of a nuanced complexity, right? That you need to recognize you're not going to be the only one to lead in the history, right? So you need to have other leaders prepared to take on the task when you're completed yours.
Absolutely.
That's good.
Yeah, I think one of the churches that we served, the bishop of that church really was strong on train up your replacement, right? You have to, as a great leader, you've got to train up your replacement. And that's, like you said, that's indicative of that you're in a process as a leader, and there should also be others that are in the process behind you as well. And knowing who you are within that process or that framework is only going to benefit you as a leader and help you maintain that sanity that we're talking about too, right?
Yeah. Because I think also when you're coming into leadership, I think that was the hardest thing for me. I didn't recognize, I didn't know who I was, but yet they were requesting of me to, lead. Obviously, I thought long term, like, oh, I know God is calling me to do this in ministry and do that in ministry. But when you're just starting off and you're like really trying to discover, like, who am I?
Right.
And not understanding some of the nuances of, I'm put in this position, but I do feel some insecurities. I'm not sure, how I lead, let alone who I am to lead. Right. And so being able to say, which is probably a good question to ask you, how do you find the balance when your humanity seems so heavy on you, where to the point where, it's more than you being humble, it's just that you don't even feel the self-confidence that you are leading well, even though people may say that or, give you kudos, but you find yourself that I'm in this leadership position, but yet I am still, struggling with the self-confidence. Sometimes we lead too much by our humanity,
right,
and not have the confidence to know that, hey, I'm put here, because there is so much potential in us.
Well, I think that's a beautiful thing to highlight, the importance of balance, right? That there is confidence needed, but overconfidence, man, that'll sink your ship real fast too, right? And there's humility, right? But then, man, if you're too humble for too long, right? Then you have a missed opportunity as well. So I think, that first step of acknowledging your humanity, but then giving yourself some grace to, not be perfect, right? But that's why it's essential to know, okay, yeah, I'm a human. I'm not going to be perfect, but I gotta do what I'm feeling called to do, which is lead. Finding that balance.
Having that clear balance.
Awesome. So we've got the who.
You got the what first.
We've got the what
first.
We've got the who. And what's the next one?
How you doing?
Okay.
So how are you doing? So my personal pulse check for how are you doing is my fruit. So when you think about the 9 fruit of the Spirit, whenever I think about the fruit of the Spirit, and Tarsha, I may have sang this song to you over brunch before. Like, hear my mom's voice. The fruit of the Spirit are love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control, right? So if we think about those 9 things, how are those components of my spirit showing up, right? Nice. Am I not being maybe a loyal friend, right? Am I being quick-tempered with my children?
That's good.
Right? Are there things that are showing up in my fruit that then I'm like, oh, wait, I need to do a little self-assessment here. Is there something else at the root that is causing the fruit to maybe be disrupted in some way? And so how are you doing is an important piece of the puzzle.
That is awesome. Yeah. You going to say something?
No,
first?
Go ahead.
I had a sermon called Shake Your Tree. What is in your tree? Because a lot of times we do need to be looking like, okay, am I Galatians 5, right? The fruits of the Spirit, and saying, okay, where am I coming up short?
Right.
Am I short-tempered, like you were saying? Am I even showing self-control? And being a leader, and someone told me, one of my mentors told me this, is that, you can't say you're a leader in this area and not be a leader in other places in your life.
Right.
And so, maybe you're not showing, maybe you're showing fruit at your job, but then all of a sudden you come home, you missing some fruit.
Right. You left it at work. You left it in the cubicle.
Right. It's in the refrigerator. Where, where's your fruit at?
Mm-hmm.
I think that is so awesome that it sounds like we have to have that self-awareness,
Yes.
right? Because if we're building on what she's saying here, that as a leader, look, I want to have good mental health, and I need to check those things off, which is found in God's word, right? And we gotta make sure. And then I said this, because you bring my message back, expect the fruit. If you have fruit and you pull it from the tree, is it rotten on the inside? Is there things that are taking away from the fruit that you should be producing?
Yeah.
I might have to preach that message again.
We just took a turn, Tarsha. Go ahead.
But
I think your point, though, Pastor Kevin, about leaving my fruit at work, right? So I'll speak with transparency on this. I was raised in an environment where I was successful at school.
Mm-hmm.
I knew what the structure was. I knew what the expectation was. I was gifted with intelligence. So I achieved what I was called to achieve in that setting. Outside of that setting, right? So it's no surprise then that I went from elementary to high school to college to graduate school to graduate school, right? Like,
yeah.
Okay, we got to end our involvement with academia. I taught as a professor, right? So I was in academia because, man, my fruit, they looked great in that environment. I did not know, and I'm now 11 years in, just beginning to feel confident in my ability to be a wife.
Wow.
Right? 8 years in, I'm just now feeling maybe I'm a good enough mom.
Right. Wow.
So recognizing, but if you look at my academic career, man, I've been in school for 30 years. Of course, I'm going to be stronger in that area, right? So then as a result, in the workplace, right, of course, I'm going to feel more confident in that environment. My fruit are going to shine brighter. My presence is going to be more confident in that environment. But it's the fruit that is born in those areas where maybe I'm still in an infancy stage of development, right? Adolescent phase I'm a mature person, academic, professionally. But in terms of my wife duties, my motherhood duties, I'm in an infancy, maybe adolescent phase of development. And so recognizing that there's a different role, right? So what am I doing here, right? What's my role? Recognizing that, but then recognizing, okay, that doesn't mean then that I don't pay attention to the fruit I bear. Right. Even more so, I should be paying attention so that I am a balanced human being, right? Not only capable in this arena, and then my relationships fail, right? I divorce and my children don't speak to me, but man, I lead a really powerful congregation.
Come on now.
Right?
Come on now.
You have to have balance. And so recognizing your humanity helps you pay attention to, oh, wait, I might be a really mature leader, but but it's okay that I'm in an infant phase in my marriage. Right? And so finding their own nuanced balance of grace and confidence within that arena of leadership that you're called to as well within your relationships.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think I reminded, because in my corporate settings, I just went through a round of interviewing people for a role with my company. And one of the questions that I always ask is, okay, what are your strengths? Right? It's really easy to go through our strengths. But then the question that sometimes stumps people is, okay, what are your opportunities? Because I think everybody needs to be self-aware of, yes, what I do well, where I lead well, where I'm good, like as you mentioned in academia, you're great there, but where are the areas that are your opportunities? It doesn't mean that you're a failure in them. It just means that there's an opportunity and that you're self-aware enough to recognize this is a place that I can grow and mature in. And so getting back to how am I doing, everyone needs to have that self-awareness of, okay, this is how I'm doing in this setting, but when I get into this setting, I may not be doing as well. So let me figure out how I can do better in this arena or in this area. So having that self-awareness, all of this really just relates, in my opinion, to a lot of self-awareness. But I think this one really just causes us to take stock of ourselves, do an inventory and a QA analysis, if you will, of what's going on, so that we can make sure that we are, we're operating the way we want to operate, we're called to operate, but also we're not driving ourselves crazy or batty because we're public success and a private failure.
Yes, yeah, and it's obviously acknowledgement is great, having the self-awareness, but saying that I'm going to go ahead and do something about it, right? Because if we keep with the analogy of the fruit, that tree, if it's getting enough sun, if it's getting enough water, you at one point want to be able to pull fruit from it. But that takes, obviously with nature, God makes sure the sun comes up, we have the rain, but in other areas, what can we do? Like, how am I going to make sure my fruit grows into a mature fruit, that I can say people can pick from my tree. And I think people have to recognize, like, okay, maybe I'm not communicating well, and I need to find resources and books. And I think that goes back to the second part, when you're humble enough to say, I need help, or humble enough to say, I need to read on this, or reach out to a friend and say, these are my struggles. And, these are things that I want to show up in my life, but they're not showing up, because unfortunately, when we're talking about our mental health, not having self-control, it could put us in a whirlwind of, trouble with our body health, with our relationships and different things. And so I think, or even self-hate, we talk about outward, but some of these things that we're not producing fruit can definitely affect us first, which trickles into other areas.
Exactly. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
And I say this a lot in my practice, that it's okay to not be okay. Just don't be the only one who knows that.
Right.
Yes.
That's good.
Even one of our taglines at our office is, it's okay to ask for help along the way. Right. So it's okay also to not be okay, but just don't be the only one who knows that. Ask for help, seek out support, because I think oftentimes people who are in leadership fail to recognize when they are in need of help, but then they also fail to recognize that, man, they have people right there who've got their back, right? And the opportunity there for your brave vulnerability to create healing in relationships by acknowledging, hey, I need help in this area. Man, that's a powerful gift that you can give people who are right there wanting you to lead them. So yeah, I think this is a great conversation though.
Awesome.
Yeah, because, and I know you're not making it sound easy, because that is hard. I know I had
doing self-evaluations sometimes very difficult.
Oh, saying that you're not okay that's kind of what I'm referring to. Is like, I know I had to call a company that worked with our companies called LifeWorks, and tell them that I needed to speak to someone. And that was like the hardest thing to do, is to tell a stranger, hey, I need a resources. I'm not okay. And it's almost, it gives you this feeling of, like you said, vulnerability, or it's like you feel like you lose like your superpowers. Like, I've been trying to keep this going for so long. I've been trying to be strong for so long. And then to say I need help, you feel like it's a sign of weakness when it's actually strength to be able to do such a thing.
That's good.
That's beautifully put. Yeah, it feels like weakness, but it is in actuality strength.
Yeah. Well, we got number 4. What is number 4?
So number 4 kind of speaks to that a little bit more in terms of where. Okay, so where are my mirrors at? And so when I say that mirrors, I'm talking about your close circle, right? Your intimate few, your select few people who are really trusted confidants, right?
Yes.
And those relationships should serve a purpose in your life to really hold a mirror up, right? So they're not analyzing, they're not judging, but they're merely holding up a reflection of what they're observing, right? So this is what I see, right? When I look at you, right? Because if you think in leadership, right, if you think about like a tall, fruitful tree, you're not able to also bend over and inspect your roots, right?
That's good.
You need people to be around you, inspecting the health. Like, does something need to be pruned? Is this area getting too much sun? Is this area getting too much water? Is there weeds encroaching? Is there danger, right? So they need to be holding up those mirrors to be able to be a reflection back to you of area of, possible opportunities or risks that could happen, right? So I think of it like, if we're going to use the fruit analogy, right? Like, where am I battered? Where am I bruised? Or how you talked about earlier, Tertia, like the rot, and on the inside, where is the rot? Where is the stuff that maybe I need to be paying closer attention to, healing, so that I can be a healthy leader?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because I think
mirrors up.
Yeah, I think the other piece to that and is also just being able to, because everyone that we have around us, especially even our close people, sometimes if we are wrestling with something ourselves, we sometimes will take the feedback as an attack, but also having, I guess, the maturity and just the wherewithal that your mirrors are there to really just to reflect back to you what they're seeing, right? The mirror is not, if your hair is out of place in the mirror is not attacking you and denigrating you for that. The mirror is just saying, hey, your hair is out of place. And I think sometimes in leadership, sometimes we take things that when people are saying, this is what I'm receiving from you, we sometimes take it as an attack instead of, like you're saying, as a mirror. Where are my mirrors at? Who are the people that I trust to speak into my life, that I trust their feedback and I can receive their feedback, even when it's not the feedback that I want.
Yeah. And I like that, because a lot of time people don't mirror back to us, to be honest. They just say, well, you do this and you done this. Instead of, I like that term and that kind of terminology, because it's like, okay, because I would love, like, when the next time we have, a consultation or something, or we spend time with someone that we're helping as a leader, say, well, can I show you what I see? And like, I'm going to be, like, if you were in the mirror, this is what I'm seeing in the mirror. Because when you do that, it's only thing it says, you're just reflecting an image. I'm just giving you back what you're reflecting,
right, what you're presenting,
right, what you're presenting to me, or reflecting, because it's like, okay, you're saying something and I'm getting a glimpse of, who you're saying you are. And I think a lot of times that diminishes the attack,
right? Because
the only thing I want to do, I just kind of want to mirror what I'm hearing from you.
Yes.
Because even when we've had premarital counseling, we're supposed to say, like, what I hear you saying is, and then repeat back what we heard.
Right.
That's a sense of mirroring. I'm not using my words, I'm using your words. And then I'm asking you to make sure you're defining what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
And I think if we do that for ourselves, that means giving people the opportunity and the safe space, because when we're talking about our close circle, to say, hey, tell me what you see.
Right.
When I do this, tell me you know, what you see when this occurs, or if you see me in this situation. And I think people you love, they love to inform you, good and bad, right? When you're interested in how they're seeing you.
Yeah.
Well, and I think also, Tarsha, if leaders aren't seeing opportunities for adjustments, like Pastor Kevin, I liked how you said, like, if you're looking in the mirror and your hair's like out of place, right? I'm just showing you that your hair is out of place, right? I'm not telling you that your hair shouldn't be out of place, or that you should swoop it to this side or that side, or you need a haircut. I am just showing you what's being observed, right? But it's still the task of the person who has their hair out of place to look in the mirror. Right. And so you have to, in my opinion, as a healthy leader, be willing to take a look in your mirrors, right? Have those mirrors in place, but then be willing to look at them, because the truth is, if we circle back to the top of my list, we're human, right? So we're going to be battered. We're going to be bruised. We're going to have opportunities for pruning and development. And so if we're not seeing those opportunities presented to ourselves, then maybe we should reassess if our mirrors are actually in place.
Yeah.
That's good. You know, because another thought came to me is like, sometimes we don't take enough time in the mirror, because like, you know how you go in real quick and like, oh, I'm gonna wash my face and da 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 da. And then you get out and then somebody was like, what's this? or you miss something, or you go into another mirror where there's more lighting, you know, or it's for some reason something catches your eye, you know, and then a lot of times for whatever reason we don't believe what we see in the mirror.
That's good too.
You know, it's like, oh no, that's not there. Oh no, you know, I'm not getting wrinkles under my No, you are. You do get gray hair. So, and I like that you said that it's giving the opportunity, that I'm not telling you to change it. I'm making an observation for you to decide what you're going to do with what you see.
That's good. Yeah.
Because a lot of times we see stuff and we complain about what we see. We say, well, and we make excuses about what we see, but we never change what we see.
Yeah.
How does someone, when, you know, they are in the mirror and obviously they have to make those decisions to change what they see, you know, what would be a good way to give someone that, or for someone to make those first moves to say, I am seeing something, but I feel a little defeated about changing it, or I don't feel a strength enough to make a change in what I'm seeing. I've always been this way.
Well, then you're always going to be that way. Right? So in therapy, we talk about stages of change, and you know, one of those opportunities is to do what you've been doing and get what you've been getting, right? Or make a change, right? And so if you acknowledge, yep, my hair's out of place, right? Like, yep, my temper is bad, right? Or whatever area of potential growth and development opportunity there might be. Yep, that is what it is. This is where I'm going to be. Well, then being aware that if you have that rigidity, then from that, in the same way, like we're going to go with the plants, right? Okay. So if you have a pot, right, and you have roots in a pot, and those roots grow only to the amount that the pot gives them, right? So if you're rigid and not flexible and not willing to be self-reflective and to take feedback and to be in a posture of humility, right? And to take that nourishment, that kind of soil churning growth and stuff, then your roots are going to get stifled, and then you won't get nourished. You won't be nourishing the fruit, right?
Right.
So then it brings us back to the top of the list, right? So, if you find yourself in that phase of, I don't want to change that, you don't have to change that, but know that your leadership rigidity will probably stifle your ability to continue to be a leader. And when will you know that to be true? When no one's following.
That's
right?
Good. That's good.
Because there'll be nothing to nourish.
Right.
Because you won't be nourishing, right? You won't be producing nourishing fruit. So, I don't know if that answers your question, but
no, I think it does, because what I hear you saying is that, because if you stay in that pot, obviously you're only going to get so big, and you only be able to produce, smaller fruit, only until you get to another, my mom would pot plants, and it would start with a pot that would sit on the table, and then it was like, oh, it's time to repot. And then at that time she'll move it to a bigger pot. And then before I know it, this tree is like from the floor, up to almost close to the roof. And I'm thinking, how in the world, but every time it was time to make a pivot or, decide like, hey, I need to be able to expand and grow. And again, those expansions come with resources. Those expansions sometimes come with people coming into your life, showing you that mirror. The expansion comes when you realize like, oh, I can't do it this myself. So you're giving yourself another opportunity to get into another pot. And that the moment we say, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to change this, or, I'm satisfied with this. Like you said, it stifles your growth, and then only people will follow you who's below your point. Like they're behind in whatever the growth they need. I think that brings a point to me, and you can let me know, Kevin, how you feel about this, is that also you have to continue to grow as a leader and pivot so that the people behind you can grow as a leader. Once you become stifled, you're stifling people behind you, or people will pass you where, guess what? You aren't leading them, but you're actually end up following them.
One of the rules or laws of leadership is that you can only grow to the level of your leader, right? It's reason, like, for example, Andrew, you've been in academia, right? And so you could not, you couldn't teach third grade until you passed third grade, right? You couldn't teach a master's program until you at least had your master's, right? And so as a leader, we have to be mindful that you should always be in a constant state of growth, so that we can be the best leader, that we can become the best husband, we can become the best wife, we can become the best parent we can become. And so having those mirrors around you will help you to identify those areas that maybe I need to grow in this area. I do well here. And that really all just ties into all of the ones that you've given so far, the who, the what, the how, and where. So all of those things are related to being in a position to recognize what's around us and what's going on with us, so that we can continue to grow and not shrink back.
Yeah, that's good. I think also, I know we're going to wrap up.
She's got one more.
Oh, I thought that was 5.
No, that was 4.
Oh God. Okay, I'm sorry.
Still got one more. Come on.
I thought I'm okay. I got so excited. Okay.
Well, we've had such rich discussion already, but I do have one more for you. It's your why. And in order to answer the question of why, a leader must be listening. So we've kind of referenced this, kind of all very thematically, right, of being aware and self-aware. but you need to be listening. And so I'm going to give you the 5 levels of listening. There's a couple of different psychologists that have broken this down in a couple different ways. So I might be kind of overlapping different themes, but that first level of listening is ignoring, right? Or actively not listening. Okay. So that's different than not hearing, right? Oh, I didn't hear you. Ignoring is actively not listening. Okay. Then we have pretending to listen, right? So maybe just acknowledging receiving audio feedback, but not digesting any of the information, right? So then we're just pretending. That next level of listening is selective listening. That's when we're only hearing parts of what's communicated, but there's rich opportunity for miscommunication at this level of listening. And usually the listener is just listening to respond when they are selectively listening.
Yeah.
Okay? Attentive listening, right? I think many of us have probably heard throughout our years, be an attentive listener, right? Listening. And that's great. Being an attentive listener is a really great way to listen. Miscommunication is lower because you're really attuning to the information being given. But an attentive listener is still filtering through their own frame of reference, right?
Wow.
Their own morals and beliefs and systems of understanding, right? And so oftentimes we're doing, kind of some judgment or prejudgment of the speaker, right? That deepest level of listening is what I call restorative listening. Okay. That's when you're listening truly to understand from the other person's frame of reference, right? Yeah. So that's laying down your own frame of reference and really, truly, deeply understanding the person from their frame of reference. And so as leaders, it's important for us to have this skill of listening to those around us, right? But it's also important for you to the why, right? Listen to yourself, right? So tuning into what is my why, right? And when we think about in the church, oftentimes that conversation will quickly get you into prayer and meditation, right? Listening to God within you and speaking to what is my why? Like, what is my purpose? And really only when you are able to suspend your own filter of, oh, no, that's, not a good choice because of ABC, right? Kind of get in the way of God's plan for our life, right? When we kind of let him know, like, that's not going to work, right? So when we really give ourselves permission to restoratively listen to ourselves and to God in that conversation, because I think that's when we put ourselves in position to be able to receive that feedback that we may have received from our mirrors, right? To really be able to be introspective as to what's going on with my fruit in all these other roles that I play within my life. And what does it mean that, man, I am a human and God is calling me to lead? Like, wow, that's a really big deal. So that's my 5th is why.
That's good.
Yeah.
So with that being said, why is it called restorative? What are we restoring? Are we restoring something that's missing within us when we say restorative listen? Or are we restoring something in what's being communicated between the two people? Can you go just a little bit in depth with that?
I would love to. I'm so glad you asked me that. So actually, Dr. Covey calls that level of listening empathetic listening, right? I call it restorative listening because it has actually been scientific studies that demonstrate that just the act of listening, deep restorative listening, causes regeneration.
Wow.
So regeneration of your neurosynapses, right? So healing for the brain, right? And so when we're able to listen, truly listen to ourselves, that's where healing happens, right? And of course, I'm biased. I'm a therapist, right? So I witnessed how profound of a healing property is held within the capacity of truly listening. And so if we are really listening to ourselves and having that conversation with God in that prayer and meditation, that's where restorative healing happens, and then just only further equips us to be able to receive that feedback from our mirrors, to be able to accept with humility our humanity, right? But then yet and still raise up in confidence to lead, because that is the purpose that has been called upon your life. So I'm glad you asked that clarification question, Tarsha, because restorative listening is when healing happens.
Man,
that's good.
And that brings me to in a previous church where we led, we had encounter weekends. And during that time, there's a speaker that would give a testimony. And then after the testimony period that they ministered, that, they had some type of healing occur, there would be a small group setting where participants who felt comfortable could share how their stories mirrored what they heard.
Yeah.
And in that time, we saw people now, based off of what you're describing and your definition, was being restored. It was like something came into them that they understood, or what was, mirrored of like, oh, this is the thing that's been holding me back.
And I'm not the only one that's been through this. Or
Yeah. Or they needed to see someone else make it through that hurdle. And it kind of like, that's me. That's where I'm stuck. That's why, that's what I need to get to another place, or my why of where I am. And not thinking, right? Because it was like, oh, we're being spiritual, we're trying to resolve root issues. And all the time, some of the things that we were doing, we didn't know, scientifically, we were helping people to restore or regenerate in their mind. That's
well, God is so creative, right? It's like the master architect, the most beautiful artist. Like he is, I don't know if everybody theologically will agree with me on this, but he is the first originator of science, right? He has ordained where all the atoms go and all the things, like at a microscopic level, he has designed the world with order, right? So I think sometimes things look magical, right? And so then we allow them to be magical, which is fine.
Right.
But truly, there's there's truth to it, right? All truth is God's truth, because it's that way, right? So there is a reason why healing was occurring, right? And now science is understanding it at a greater degree, but oh God, for sure.
That is awesome. Good. I mean, okay. So we've heard the 5 steps of listening, and we've all been in those steps. We tend to stay in step 4 a lot. What would be like 1 or 2 tips to get to restorative listening and stay in that space? I think sometimes, as we get older, it gets easier because we get tired of fighting. It's like, okay, let me just really like hear you out. But how do we stay? Say again?
Or pretend.
Right, or pretend.
I think as people get older, sometimes they might lean the other way.
You're correct. But if we want to stay in that restorative listening area, which I do, I need to work on that. I want to stay in that restorative. What tips would you give someone, to stay in that area, in that realm?
So I'm going to give you another kind of infographic I'm going to describe for you. Okay, so another theme in counseling that we talk a lot about is the window of tolerance. Okay, so we're all the most optimal functioning when we're within our window of tolerance, right?
Mhm.
Not overly stressed. We're feeling pretty good. So we're functioning pretty well, right? We're
Mhm.
calm, cool, and collected in our relationships, and we're able to do the tasks of the day, right? But once those stressors come into play, our window of tolerance starts to get smaller, right? And so then we might start seeing symptoms of either hyper arousal or hypo arousal, right? So either being overactivated easily, right? Irritability, anger, aggression, anxieties, right? Where we're just feeling worked up, or hypoarousal, where we're just like, oh, tune it out, shut down, like, oh my goodness, I can't, right? So you're just like avoidant almost, right? So recognizing the need for expanding your window of tolerance, right? So it's really hard to be a restorative listener when you're stressed out, right? When your window of tolerance is microscopic, it's hard to be restorative because the information that you're going to be receiving as a restorative listener is probably going to stress you out, right?
Right.
If you have a strong moral lens about certain things, right? And somebody gives you information that maybe you feel compelled to judge or categorize as wrong or evil, right? And so then, oh man, I am not restoratively listening. I'm just actively judging you, right? And so expanding your window of tolerance is essential to be able to stay in that zone of restorative listening.
Gotcha. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. I mean, I'm gonna, when we play this, I'm gonna take notes. I'm gonna take notes because I think these are things that which was just so, I feel like a great leveling tool, right? Not too high over our head,
right?
Not too simplistic where, but I think it's perfect for a person to get started to say, okay, these are things that I feel like I can do. I can, what kind of leader am I? How can I find humility if I'm not reaching out, if I'm not, talking to someone about areas I need to work on, seeing how I can do better, asking my circle to just kind of tell me, what do they see, and then of course, communication is always throughout it, but being able to listen, and understand what level of listener you are.
And I think even more so than being a good listener, right? Because I think every leader needs to be a good listener, but making sure that you also are heard at that level, right? So we talked about listening to yourself at that level, right? God at that level, but having those trusted people, even if you have to go outside your circle and find somebody who has to abide by HIPAA regulations and try to tell your truth so that you can be heard, because your story matters too.
Yeah,
that's good.
That's good.
That's good. Yeah, you do have to be heard. And when, I know we're almost at an hour, but I got this. And when you saying being heard, are we talking about being heard as the individual? Or are you talking about being heard as the leader? Because sometimes we're being heard because we're the leader, but we're not feeling like we're being heard as the person.
Yeah, definitely. Heard as an individual, heard as more than who you're seen as, right?
That's it.
Yeah.
Ooh, Jesus. That's good. That's good. That's good. Well, we always give our guests the final words. If there was anything else you wanted to put a big old bow on this gift that you're giving our leaders that are listening to our podcast, what would that be?
I would have to circle back and say that it's okay to not be okay, but just don't be the only one who knows that. It's okay to ask for help. People care and want to see you be healthy and well. So that's how I would end.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Man. Great. No, I better not say nothing else. She knows I can talk for another hour. I can just sit there and ask her questions like, okay.
But listen, we want to definitely appreciate you, Andrea, for stopping by, for sharing those 5 amazing things of really just understanding who we are and making sure that we protect our mental health, especially when we're leading, because we've seen some of the tragedies, if you will, of leaders that did not protect themselves and protect their mental health, and felt that it was not okay to be not okay, right? And so we definitely appreciate that. We value you. And so for all of our listeners that have stopped by, go make sure you rewind this, go back, listen, make sure you get the notes, because this has been some great information to help just in how I can protect my mental health and still lead well, right? That's the goal, right?
Yes. Well,
that's it.
Andrea, hold on.
Hold on, Andrew. We'll close this out. All right, so that's it for this episode of the War Room podcast. Once again, we appreciate you stopping by and listening. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you connect with us at our Empowerment Hub Facebook page, I should say, or also just our website, empowermenthub.one. And we'll see you all next time. Have a great one. Be blessed.
Bye.